The stars looked the same as they always did from Celestial Station, tiny dots of light against the endless black. Samantha West had worked as security commander on this station for 7 years now. She knew every corner of the massive structure that served as the heart of the Confederation of Allied Species. Today started like any other day. Samantha checked the night reports, assigned patrol routes, and then went to the observation deck to drink her morning tea. She liked these quiet moments before the diplomatic chaos began. 27 different alien species worked on this station, each with their own customs, needs, and tempers. The quiet didn't last long. Her communication device buzzed. It was Keith, one of her youngest officers. "Commander, you need to come to the sensor lab right now," Keith said. His voice shook slightly. "What's happening?" Samantha asked, already moving toward the door. "We picked up a signal, like nothing we've seen before." "Well, nothing we've seen in a very long time." 5 minutes later, Samantha stood in the sensor lab, staring at the readouts. The technicians looked nervous. Even the station's AI seemed confused by what it was processing. "Play it again," she ordered. The speakers crackled with static, then produced a series of tones and clicks that made no sense to her ears, but the computer translation appeared on the screen. "We are returning. Prepare accordingly." "Where is it coming from?" Samantha asked. The lead technician, a blue-skinned Arcturian named Vila, pointed to a star map. "Here, at the edge of the Sagittarius arm, moving toward Confederation space. And you're sure about the origin?" Keith nodded. "The encryption protocol matches ancient human codes. We checked 3 times. The word hung in the air. Human. A species most young people only knew from history lessons. Humans had vanished from the galaxy 20,000 years ago. Some said they died out. Others believed they left for another galaxy. The official records were vague. "Alert Admiral Collins," Samantha said. "And call an emergency council meeting. Level 1 security protocols." Within hours, representatives from all 27 Confederation species gathered in the Great Council chamber. Fear filled the room. Many species had evolved long after humans disappeared, knowing them only as legends. But the older races remembered, and their fear was real. Admiral Gregory Collins stood at the central podium. Though not human himself, but a Proximan with gray skin and 4 arms, he had studied human history extensively. "The signal appears genuine," he said, "and our long-range sensors have detected an object of enormous size moving toward Confederation space. Based on its speed and trajectory, it will reach the outer boundary in 3 weeks." Representative Zara from the reptilian Saurian Empire rose from her seat. Her scales flashed purple with anxiety. "The archives speak of their weapons," she hissed. "Their ruthlessness in war. If even half the stories are true, we must prepare our defenses immediately." "We don't know their intentions," Samantha said, speaking out of turn. All eyes turned to her. "The message only says they're returning. It doesn't threaten attack." "Commander West is right," Admiral Collins said. "We should prepare for all possibilities, but not jump to conclusions." As the council argued, Peter Bailey sat in the station's archives, searching through ancient records. At 25, he was the youngest senior analyst on Celestial Station. While others debated what to do, he wanted to understand why humans had disappeared in the first place. Most records from that time were fragmented or deliberately erased, but Peter had always been good at finding information others missed. He noticed patterns in the gaps, references that didn't quite match the official history. After hours of searching, he found something hidden in a corrupted data file, something that changed everything he thought he knew. Humans hadn't simply disappeared. They had been banished, exiled to the farthest reaches of space by something called the Tribunal, after a conflict so terrible that most references to it had been erased from history. Peter downloaded his findings and ran to the council chamber. He arrived breathless, interrupting a heated debate about whether to send warships to meet the approaching vessel. "Admiral, I found something you need to see," he said, connecting his datapad to the main display. The chamber fell silent as ancient text appeared on the screen. It was a fragment of the exile decree, ordering all humans to leave known space, forever or face extinction, This doesn't make sense, Admiral Collins said. Why would all records of this be hidden? I don't know, Peter admitted. But there's more. According to this, humans were blamed for destroying an entire species, the Calvans. But later records show the Calvans were actually wiped out by an asteroid impact. You're suggesting humans were falsely accused? Samantha asked. I don't have enough information to be sure, Peter said. But something about this doesn't add up. While the council processed this revelation, the sensor lab called with an update. The object approaching, Confederation space, had been partially identified. It was a ship, larger than any currently known vessel. Its design matched fragments of recovered human technology. Over the next 3 weeks, tension grew throughout Confederation space. Some planets began evacuating their populations, others prepared for war. Military vessels from all 27 species gathered at the border, forming the largest fleet seen in thousands of years. Samantha spent these weeks reviewing what little was known about human combat tactics. She also worked closely with Peter, trying to uncover more about the mysterious tribunal and why humans had been exiled. What if they're coming back for revenge? She asked one night, as they sorted through ancient data. After 20,000 years? Peter shook his head. That's a long time to hold a grudge. Not if they were wrongly punished. Not if they lost their home. The day finally came. The human ship entered Confederation space exactly where predicted. Long-range visual sensors showed an enormous vessel, its black hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. It moved with impossible grace for its size. In the council chamber, silence fell as the first clear images appeared on the main screen. The ship was shaped like an arrowhead, 5 times larger than the biggest Confederation battleship. Along its side, in letters that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for 20 millennia, was a single word: reclamation. Then came the signal, stronger now. Clear enough for all to hear without translation. This is Director Paul Harmon of the Terran Reclamation Fleet. After 20,000 years of exile, humanity has returned to reclaim what was ours. We seek the descendants of the tribunal that sentenced us to the void. Prepare for our arrival. Samantha looked at Admiral Collins. What do we do now? The Admiral stared at the image of the human ship, his 4 hands gripping the podium tightly. We meet them, he said finally, and we hope that 20,000 years has made them more forgiving than their reputation suggests. The human ship Reclamation hung in space like a dark shadow against the stars. 3 weeks had passed since its arrival, and tension across the Confederation grew with each day. Smaller Confederation vessels surrounded it, keeping a safe distance. Their weapons remained ready, though everyone knew they would be no match for the human ship if stories of their technology were true. Captain Eleanor Vance stood on the bridge of her ship, the Harmony. As the Confederation's top diplomat, she had resolved many conflicts, but nothing like this. Her mission was simple yet impossible: make peaceful contact with humans who had returned after 20,000 years of exile. Are you ready, Captain? Asked Jack Rivera, her communications officer. His fingers hovered over the controls, ready to open a channel to the Reclamation. Eleanor took a deep breath. Yes, open the channel. The main screen flickered to life. A human man appeared, wearing a simple gray uniform with no visible rank or insignia. He had short brown hair and a face that showed no age lines, yet his eyes looked ancient. I am Director Paul Harmon of the Terran Reclamation Fleet, he said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Thank you for reaching out, Captain Vance. Director Harmon, Eleanor said. I am authorized by the Confederation Council to welcome you to our space and to discuss your intentions peacefully. Our intentions? Harmon's expression didn't change. We have returned to reclaim what was ours. We seek justice for a wrong committed against us 20 millennia ago. The Council is willing to hear your grievances, Eleanor said carefully. But much time has passed. None alive today had any part in what happened to your people. Time passes differently for us now, Captain, Harmon replied. But I accept your invitation. I will come aboard your vessel with 2 officers. We will be unarmed. After the communication ended, Eleanor contacted Admiral Collins on Celestial Station. He agreed to meet, she reported. But something about him feels different. Not quite human, at least not like the historical records describe. 20,000 years can change a species, Admiral Collins replied. Be careful, Captain. We don't know what they've become out there in the void. 3 hours later, a small shuttle departed from the reclamation. It approached the Harmony smoothly, without any defensive maneuvers. Eleanor waited in the docking bay with a small security team. The shuttle door opened and 3 humans stepped out. Director Harmon led the way, followed by a woman with dark hair tied back tightly and a tall man with broad shoulders. Harmon introduced them as Chief Science Officer Olivia Pearson and Security, Director Daniel Carter. Welcome aboard the Harmony, Eleanor said. We've prepared a conference room for our discussion. As they walked through the corridors, alien crew members stopped to stare. Some had never seen a human before. Others, from long-lived species, watched with ancient fear in their eyes. In the conference room, Eleanor noticed that the humans moved with unusual grace. Their movements were too perfect, too controlled. Before we begin, Harmon said, I want to address your curiosity. Yes, we have changed. Human bodies are fragile, with short lifespans. To survive our exile, we had to adapt. You modified yourselves? Eleanor asked. We evolved, Olivia Pearson said. Her voice was musical, almost synthetic, both naturally and through our own intervention. The humans you see before you are very different from those who were exiled. The meeting lasted for hours. The humans explained that they had survived in the void between galaxies, using generation ships to preserve just enough of their population. Over thousands of years, they developed technologies that allowed them to extend their lives, enhance their bodies, and eventually build ships capable of returning. But why return now? Eleanor asked. After so long? Because we finally discovered the truth, Daniel Carter said, his deep voice filling the room. We were framed for crimes we did not commit. Meanwhile, on Celestial Station, Samantha West and Peter Bailey continued their research into humanity's exile. They had been given special access to the deepest archives, sections that hadn't been opened in thousands of years. Look at this, Peter said, pointing to a dusty data crystal. It's a sealed record from the original tribunal. They placed the crystal in a reader. The holographic display showed images of devastation, planets reduced to ash, billions dead. The tribunal had accused humans of developing a weapon that destroyed entire solar systems. But that doesn't match any known human technology from that era, Samantha said. Even now, no species has that capability. Exactly, Peter replied. Someone else caused this destruction and blamed humanity. Back on the Harmony, the diplomatic meeting took an unexpected turn when thousands of small objects suddenly launched from the reclamation. They spread across Confederation space at incredible speed. What are those? Eleanor demanded, rising from her seat. Probes, Harmon explained calmly. They will not harm anyone. They are collecting data. That's an act of aggression, Eleanor said. You should have asked permission. We did not come here to ask permission, Harmon replied. We came for justice. Across Confederation space, the probes began their work. They scanned planets, ships, and stations, gathering information at speeds that outmatched any attempts to stop them. When Confederation vessels approached the probes, they simply self-destructed, leaving no evidence to study. On several worlds that had once been human colonies, ancient systems suddenly activated. Defense platforms buried beneath oceans, hidden in mountains or disguised as moons, came to life, responding to signals from the reclamation. These systems had lain dormant for 20,000 years, their existence unknown to the current inhabitants. On the Confederation capital world of New Geneva, archaeologist Maria Franklin made a shocking discovery in ruins beneath the governmental palace. She found evidence of a conspiracy, records showing that the original tribunal had deliberately falsified evidence against humanity. This can't be right, she whispered to herself as she studied the ancient documents. The records named another species, the Voidborn, as the true perpetrators of the atrocities. But the Voidborn were believed to have gone extinct thousands of years ago. The evidence suggested they had infiltrated multiple governments and framed humanity for their own crimes. After humanity was exiled, the Voidborn had then stolen human territories and technology. As Maria prepared to bring this information to the council, a shadow moved across the wall behind her. A figure emerged from the darkness, not quite solid, more like a ripple in reality. "You should not be here," a voice whispered, though it made no sound in the air. "Some truths are meant to stay buried." Back in space, the Reclamation suddenly powered up its engines. Director Harmon stood and nodded. To his companions, "Our meeting is concluded for now," he said to Eleanor, "but be warned. We are not the only human ship that has returned. The Reclamation believes in diplomatic solutions. The others do not." As if on cue, sensors across Confederation space detected a new signal. A second massive ship had appeared, at the edge of the system. Its design matched the Reclamation, but where the first ship was dark and silent, this one pulsed with angry red energy. On its hull was a single word: retribution. Panic spread through the Confederation as news of the second human ship reached every world. The Retribution remained at the edge of the system, a silent threat that made even the bravest military commanders nervous. Unlike the Reclamation, this ship had made no attempts to communicate. On Celestial Station, Admiral Collins called an emergency meeting with his top officers and the council representatives. Samantha West and Peter Bailey were also invited to share their findings from the archives. "We believe humanity was wrongfully exiled," Peter explained, showing the ancient records they had discovered. "Evidence suggests another species called the Voidborn committed the atrocities that humans were blamed for." "The Voidborn?" asked Representative Zara, her scales turning a pale yellow. "They were wiped out 5,000 years ago. A plague destroyed their entire species." "That's what the records say," Samantha agreed. "But what if some survived? What if they've been hiding all this time?" Before anyone could respond, an urgent message came from Maria Franklin on New Geneva. Her face on the screen looked frightened, and she spoke quickly. "I found proof in the ruins beneath the government palace," she said. "The original tribunal knew humans were innocent. They worked with the Voidborn to exile humanity and then divide their territories." "Where are you now?" Admiral Collins asked. "Hiding. Something attacked me in the ruins. It wasn't solid, more like a shadow that could think. I'm sending you all my data now." The transmission suddenly cut off. Admiral Collins ordered an immediate rescue team to New Geneva, but everyone knew it would take days to reach the planet. Meanwhile, Director Harmon requested a meeting on Nexus, the neutral planet that Celestial Station orbited. He offered to come with minimal security and meet with the full Confederation Council. "It's a trap," said many council members. "They want to gather all our leaders in one place. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already," Admiral Collins pointed out. "Their technology is far beyond ours. I think we should hear what they have to say." After much debate, the council agreed to the meeting. A large hall on Nexus was prepared, with security from all Confederation species. Captain Eleanor Vance was asked to serve as the mediator, given her previous contact with the humans. When the day came, Director Harmon arrived with Chief Science, Officer Olivia Pearson, and Security Director Daniel Carter. The hall fell silent as they entered. Many expected demands, threats, or accusations. Instead, Director Harmon began with a history lesson. "For 20,000 years, we survived in the space between galaxies," he said, activating a holographic display that showed the journey of the human fleet. "Generation ships kept just enough of our population alive while we developed the technology to overcome our limitations." The display showed how humans had gradually modified themselves, first with simple genetic enhancements, then with more advanced technologies that merged biology and machinery. "We do not age as we once did," Olivia Pearson explained. "We do not get sick. We have changed in ways that would make us unrecognizable to our ancestors. but we remember where we came from. Daniel Carter stepped forward and activated another holographic display. This one showed evidence of the conspiracy against humanity, the same records that Maria Franklin had discovered, plus more that the humans had gathered during their exile. "We do not seek revenge," Harmon stated clearly. "We seek acknowledgement of the wrong done to us, reparation for what was taken, and a place among the stars that was rightfully ours." The evidence was undeniable. The Voidborn had manipulated events, framing humanity for their own crimes. After humanity's exile, they had taken control of human territories before eventually disappearing themselves. As the council members processed this information, a new signal came in. A third human ship had been detected entering the system. Unlike the other two, this one broadcast its identity openly. "This is the Renaissance, under the command of Counselor Heather Wright. We come in peace and hope to facilitate understanding." Between humanity and the Confederation, the situation grew more complex. 3 human ships with 3 different approaches: Reclamation seeking justice through diplomacy, Retribution hovering with implied threat, and now Renaissance offering friendship. On the Reclamation, Director Harmon received news that troubled him deeply. General Alan Russell, commander of the Retribution, had stopped responding to communication attempts. The ship's second-in-command reported that Russell had become increasingly aggressive, speaking of humanity's right to reclaim the galaxy by force if necessary. "He wasn't like this when we left," Harmon told Olivia and Daniel after the council meeting. "Something has changed him during the journey." "Or something has influenced him," Olivia suggested. "If the Voidborn still exist in some form." "We need to find out," Harmon decided, "and we need to warn the Confederation." While the diplomatic efforts continued, Peter Bailey made a breakthrough in his research. He discovered patterns in seemingly random events across Confederation history. Conflicts that made no sense. Peaceful species suddenly turning violent. Technological advances that appeared too quickly. "Look at this," he told Samantha. "Every major conflict in the last 5,000 years can be traced back to unusual behavior by key individuals. What if they were being influenced by the Voidborn?" Samantha asked. "But how and why?" "Maybe they feed on conflict somehow," Peter suggested. "Or maybe they're playing a longer game we don't understand yet." Their theory gained support when Maria Franklin was finally found on New Geneva. She had hidden in an ancient bunker, surrounded by more evidence of Voidborn manipulation. Most disturbing was a device she had discovered, a small orb that pulsed with strange energy. "It affects thoughts," she explained when she was safely aboard Celestial Station. "When I found it, I started having angry thoughts about other species, violent impulses I've never had before. I had to lock it away just to think clearly." The council members viewed this evidence with growing alarm. If such devices existed and could influence minds, how many more were hidden throughout Confederation space? How many leaders might be under their effect without knowing it? As these revelations spread, the Retribution suddenly broke its silence. General Alan Russell appeared on communication channels across the Confederation, his eyes burning with an unnatural light. 20,000 years of exile, he declared. 20,000 years of suffering while others lived on the worlds that should have been ours. The time for talking is over. The time for humanity to reclaim its birthright has come. The Retribution powered up its weapons systems, aiming at a small Confederation outpost. Director Harmon immediately opened a channel to Russell. "Alan, stand down," he ordered. "This is not what we returned for." Russell's response was chilling. "You've gone soft, Paul. They need to understand fear as we did. Only then will they respect us enough to give us what we deserve." Before anyone could react, the Retribution fired. The Confederation outpost vanished in a flash of energy, along with the 300 beings who called it home. Horror and outrage spread across the Confederation as news of the destroyed outpost reached every world. 300 lives gone in an instant. The Confederation military mobilized, but everyone knew their weapons were no match for the Retribution's technology. Director Harmon stood on the bridge of the Reclamation, his face grim as he watched the Retribution move deeper into Confederation space. "We didn't come back for this," he said quietly. "Not for revenge. Not for war." "What are your orders, Director?" asked Daniel Carter, standing at his side. Harmon turned to face his crew. "Move the reclamation between the Confederation fleet and the Retribution. Open a channel to Admiral Collins." On Celestial Station, Admiral Collins received the communication with surprise. "You're positioning yourself against your own people?" he asked. "Russell is not acting according to our mission," Harmon replied. "Something is wrong. We believe he may be under outside influence." "The Voidborn," Collins said. "It wasn't a question." "Possibly. We need time to investigate. Can you hold your fleet back for 24 hours? Collins hesitated. 300 of my people are dead. The Council is demanding action. "And if you attack, thousands more will die on both sides," Harmon said. "Give us 1 day to stop Russell our way." While the admirals talked, Samantha West and Peter Bailey worked with Maria Franklin to understand the strange device she had found. They kept it sealed in a special container that blocked its energy. "If this can influence minds, maybe General. Russell has been exposed to something similar but much stronger," Samantha suggested. "We need to get on board the Retribution and scan him," Peter said. "But how? They won't let anyone near them now." "Not anyone from the Confederation," Maria said slowly. "But what about other humans?" On the Renaissance, Counselor Heather Wright received a coded message from Director Harmon explaining the situation. She immediately agreed to help and offered an unexpected resource. "During our journey, we made contact with several Confederation species who discovered the truth about our exile," she explained during a secure communication. "Some joined our crew. They can help us get people onto the Retribution." A plan formed quickly. A small team would board the Retribution under the pretense of negotiation between the human ships. Once aboard, they would use special sensors to determine if Russell was being influenced by Voidborn technology. Daniel Carter volunteered to lead the mission. "I've known Alan for over 300 years, he said. "He'll trust me enough to let me on board." Olivia Pearson insisted on joining him. "You'll need me to operate the sensors. And Russell respects scientists." From the Renaissance, a Confederation scientist named Jax offered to join them. He belonged to a species with natural telepathic abilities that might help detect Voidborn influence. "My people sensed something was wrong in the galaxy for generations," Jax explained. "We just never knew what it was." As the small team prepared, the Retribution continued its advance through Confederation space. It hadn't fired on any more targets, but it released hundreds of small drones that began scanning planets that had once been human colonies. "He's looking for something specific," Harmon told Admiral Collins. "We just don't know what yet." The mission to the Retribution launched the next day. Daniel, Olivia, and Jax traveled in a small shuttle, broadcasting friendly signals. After some tense moments, they received permission to dock. General Alan Russell met them in the docking bay, surrounded by armed guards. He looked the same as Daniel remembered, except for his eyes. They seemed to flicker with an inner light that didn't look natural. "Daniel, Olivia," Russell greeted them with a cold smile. "Come to join the winning side?" "We came to talk, Alan," Daniel said carefully. "The Council on the Renaissance is concerned about your actions." "The Council is weak," Russell snapped. "Just like Harmon, we have the power to take back everything that was stolen from us. Why should we ask for permission?" "Because that's not who we are," Olivia said. "We've always valued peace even after everything that happened to us." Russell laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the docking bay. "Peace? They exiled us to die in the void between stars. They took our worlds, our resources, our future. And you want peace?" As they talked, Jax remained silent, his large eyes focused on Russell. Using his natural abilities, he sensed something deeply wrong. Russell's mind wasn't entirely his own. There was something else there. Something ancient and cold. "Who's this?" Russell suddenly asked, noticing Jax for the first time. "A scientist from the Renaissance," Daniel said quickly. "He's studying human biology." Russell stepped closer to Jax, staring at him with those strange, flickering eyes. He's not human. The Renaissance made allies during our journey, Olivia explained. Some Confederation species support our cause. Russell seemed to accept this explanation and led them to a conference room. As they walked through the ship, Daniel and Olivia exchanged worried glances. The crew of the Retribution moved with strange, jerky motions. Many had the same flickering light in their eyes that Russell had. In the conference room, Olivia casually placed a small device on the table. It looked like an ordinary data pad, but it was actually the sensor they needed. "Let me show you what we've learned about the Confederation's defenses," Daniel said, activating a holographic display to distract Russell. While Russell studied the display, Olivia checked the sensor readings. What she saw confirmed their worst fears. Russell's body showed signs of neural alteration consistent with void-born technology. The alterations were focused in the areas of his brain that controlled aggression and decision-making. Jack suddenly stiffened, his telepathic senses overwhelmed. "They know," he whispered to Daniel. "They know why we're here." Russell's head snapped up, his eyes now blazing with that unnatural light. "You brought a telepath to spy on me?" he snarled. "Guards." Daniel moved quickly, grabbing Russell while Olivia stunned the nearest guards with a hidden weapon. Jax used his abilities to confuse the other guards, making them see enemies where there were none. "Get the evidence and get out," Daniel shouted to Olivia. "I'll hold him." Russell fought with inhuman strength, nearly breaking Daniel's grip. "You don't understand," he growled, his voice changing to something deeper, older. "Humanity was never meant to return. You were cast out for a reason." "Not by our own kind," Daniel said, struggling to hold him. "By the Voidborn. By you." Russell's face twisted in a smile that wasn't his own. "We are eternal. We are everywhere. And soon we will finish what we started 20,000 years ago." Olivia downloaded the sensor data and signaled their shuttle for emergency extraction. Alarms blared throughout the Retribution as they fought their way back to the docking bay. They barely made it to their shuttle, escaping as the Retribution's weapons locked onto them. The Reclamation moved to protect them, absorbing a blast meant for their small vessel. Back on the Reclamation, they shared their findings with Director Harmon and transmitted the data to both the Renaissance and Celestial Station. "It's worse than we thought," Olivia said, showing the scans of Russell's brain. "The Voidborn didn't just influence him, they're inside him somehow, controlling him and many of his crew. And they're not just on the Retribution," Jax added. "I sensed their presence elsewhere, faint but widespread. They're throughout the Confederation, hiding inside key individuals." The implications were staggering. The Voidborn hadn't gone extinct. They had evolved into something else, something that could live inside other beings and control them from within. As they processed this information, a new communication came from the Retribution. But this time it wasn't Russell who appeared on the screen. The figure looked like Russell, but its movements were wrong, its face a mask that barely concealed something inhuman behind it. "You should have stayed in exile, humans," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Now we will have to destroy you all over again." The Retribution fired its main weapon at the Reclamation. The battle for humanity's return had truly begun. The Reclamation shook as the Retribution's weapons hit its shields. Director Harmon grabbed a console to steady himself as emergency lights flashed across the bridge. "Shields at 60%, reported a crew member. "We can't take many more hits like that." "We don't want to fight them," Harmon said. "Target their weapon systems only. Disable, don't destroy." Across Confederation space, news of the battle spread quickly. The truth about the Voidborn spread even faster. Admiral Collins called an emergency session with all available council members. "We face an enemy that has been hiding among us for thousands of years," he told them. "The humans didn't come back to attack us. They came back to warn us." Representative Zara, who had been most fearful of humanity's return, now stood in support. "We must join forces with all 3 human ships. This is a fight for everyone's survival." In space, the Renaissance moved to support the Reclamation. Together, the 2 human ships faced off against the Retribution. But the Voidborn-controlled vessel was powerful. designed for war in a way the others were not. "We need the Confederation fleet," Counselor Heather Wright said during an emergency communication with Harmon and Admiral Collins. "We need to fight together, or we'll all fall separately." Admiral Collins agreed. "The fleet is moving into position now, but we need a better plan than just throwing ships at them. The Voidborn have had thousands of years to prepare for this." On Celestial Station, Samantha West had an idea. She had been studying the device Maria Franklin found, working with Peter Bailey to understand how it influenced minds. "If this affects thoughts," she said, "maybe we can reverse it. Create something that forces the Voidborn out of the people they're controlling." "Like an anti-Voidborn signal?" Peter asked. "But we would need to understand exactly how they connect to their hosts." "The humans might know," Samantha suggested. "They've been studying this longer than we have." They contacted Olivia Pearson on the Reclamation, sending her their data on the Voidborn device. Despite the ongoing battle, she immediately began working on a countermeasure. "The Voidborn exist partially in another dimension," she explained during a brief communication. "That's how they can hide inside other beings. If we can create a field that disrupts that connection, we could force them out into the open," Samantha finished. "Make them physical so they can be fought." While the scientists worked, the battle intensified. The Retribution targeted civilian areas on Nexus, forcing the Reclamation and Renaissance to split their defense. The Confederation fleet arrived, surrounding the Retribution, but their weapons could barely dent its shields. Daniel Carter led a team from the Reclamation in smaller ships, trying to get close enough to the Retribution to target specific systems. They knew Russell and his crew were victims, not the real enemy. "If we can just get aboard again," he told his team, "we might be able to shut down their weapons from inside." On the Retribution's bridge, the being that had once been General Russell watched the battle with ancient, cold eyes. The Voidborn, collective that controlled the ship, had waited thousands of years for this moment. "Humanity should have died in the void," it said to no one in particular. "Now all will suffer for their return." The Retribution suddenly changed course, heading for a new target: Earth. The ancient homeworld of humanity had been abandoned for 20 millennia, preserved as a memorial to the exile. No one lived there anymore, but it remained sacred to humans. "They're going to destroy Earth," Harmon realized. "They want to break our spirit." The 3 human ships and the Confederation fleet gave chase. Earth had once been beautiful, a blue-green jewel in space. Now it was mostly brown and gray, its atmosphere still recovering from ancient damage. But it was still home in the deepest sense. As the ships raced toward Earth, Olivia Pearson, Samantha West, and scientists from all species worked frantically to finish the anti-Voidborn device. They combined Confederation technology with human advancements, creating something entirely new. "It's ready," Olivia announced finally. "But we need to get it close to the Retribution's core. The effect has a limited range." "I'll take it," Daniel volunteered. "My ship is small enough to slip through their defenses." The final battle took place in orbit around Earth. The Retribution arrived first, immediately charging its main weapon to target the planet below. The Reclamation, Renaissance, and Confederation ships surrounded it, firing everything they had. Daniel's small ship slipped through the chaos of battle, avoiding fire from both sides as he approached the Retribution. Using codes he still remembered from his friendship with Russell, he managed to dock at a maintenance port. "I'm in," he reported. "Moving toward the core now." Inside the Retribution, the corridors were dark and strangely empty. The few crew members he encountered moved like puppets, their eyes glowing with that unnatural light. Daniel avoided them when possible and stunned them when necessary, making his way deeper into the ship. In the Retribution's core, he found what the Voidborn had been hiding, a massive chamber filled with swirling, shadow-like energy. This was their true form, or at least as close to physical as they could manage in this dimension. "I see them," he reported. It's hard to describe, like living shadows." "Place the device and get out," Harmon ordered. "We'll activate it remotely." Daniel set the device next to the core, but as he turned to leave, he came face with Russell, or what used to be Russell. "You cannot stop what has already begun," the Voidborn said through Russell's mouth. We have shaped this galaxy for thousands of years. We feed on conflict, on fear, on hatred, and you have brought us a feast." "No," Daniel said. "We've brought you an end." He activated the device manually. A pulse of energy spread outward, filling the ship. Russell screamed, a sound that was both human and something else entirely. The shadow-like energy in the core chamber began to solidify, taking physical form for the first time in millennia. Throughout Confederation space, similar scenes played out wherever the Voidborn had hidden. The signal spread through communication networks, forcing the ancient beings to take physical form. Once solid, they could no longer hide, and they could be fought. On the Retribution, Daniel helped the real Russell to his feet. The general looked confused, like someone waking from a long nightmare. "What happened?" he asked. "The last thing I remember is finding that strange artifact during our journey." "It wasn't your fault," Daniel told him. "We were all deceived." Together they escaped the Retribution as the newly physical Voidborn fought among themselves in panic and rage. Without their hosts, without the ability to hide and manipulate from the shadows, they were finally vulnerable. The combined forces of humanity and the Confederation surrounded the Voidborn, containing them with technology designed to prevent them from ever becoming non-physical again. In the aftermath, representatives from all species gathered on Earth, in the ruins of an ancient city once called New York. The crumbling remains of buildings that had once scraped the sky created a fitting backdrop for a new beginning. Director Harmon stood before the gathered representatives, human and non-human alike. "For 20,000 years, humanity was silent," he said. "We survived in the darkness between stars, changing ourselves to endure. Now we return not as conquerors, but as allies against a common enemy that nearly destroyed us all." Admiral Collins stepped forward and extended his hand in the ancient human gesture of friendship. "The Confederation acknowledges the wrong done to humanity. We offer restoration of your worlds and full membership in a new, stronger alliance." Harmon shook the offered hand. "We accept. The past cannot be undone, but the future can be built together." As the sun set on humanity's ancient homeworld for the first time in millennia, with witnesses from across the galaxy, the three ships that had brought humanity back found new purpose. The Retribution was dismantled, its resources used to build schools and hospitals. The Renaissance became a center for cultural exchange between species, and the Reclamation, the ship that had started it all, was transformed into a museum and academy orbiting Earth, where all species could learn from the past to protect the future. The dangerous ship that returned humanity to the stars had completed its mission, not with war but with truth, not with revenge but with reconciliation. After 20,000 years of silence, humanity's voice joined the chorus of the galaxy once more.